Now it's BG Sports Enterprises Inc. How cool is it being the boss of such an amazing company and working with some of the best athletes in the world?
It definitely shaped me and molded me and got me prepared for the competitiveness and the toughness you need to have being a football in a still very male dominated industry. I think often I really created my dream job.
You were at the Super Bowl, right? What was your big takeaways from the on the field, off the field?
Yeah, the Super Bowl is probably my favorite week of the year for business. I did not think that the Eagles were going to pull that off. And it was crazy. I was like, for sure, the Chiefs, and then you also hear about, some people think it's rigged.
What do you think would be the most interesting fight between two of your clients?
Oh my gosh, that's difficult. I don't know if I could even answer that.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to Brittany Gilman. Brittany, great to see you. One of the most successful agents on the planet. So very exciting to have you with us at Essentially Sports. How's everything going? I know you're super busy, over 500 clients, I think, on your roster. How do you manage that? What an exciting lifestyle, but high pressure and so much going on. How do you do it?
Yeah, all of the above. So just to clarify, we don't have 500 on the roster now. We've worked with over 500 throughout the course of my career. So it's a little easier to manage all the athletes. We do have quite a bit though that we work with globally. So yeah, it's a lot. Every single day is different. The time of year, things are different. It's a lot of management and balance and making sure that we're giving each one of our clients the same amount of attention is can be challenging at times.
You have a background as a snowboarder. How interesting was that for you? I mean, what a cool sport to be involved in, one of the most exciting, and how much did that serve you to what was to come?
Well, snowboarding really kind of shaped who I am, and I was a pro at a very young age. So when I was about 17, I was on the Junior Olympic snowboard team, and well, actually 19, I think. But I started competing at that upper level when I was 17, and so from 17 to 22, I was competing on the pro circuit and never had an agent. Always negotiated my own deals, got my own sponsors. So in retrospect, it kind of taught me how to negotiate and it taught me a lot about what's required to be a professional athlete, which present day is really helpful because I think it enables me to really connect with my clients and understand their lifestyle a lot more than someone who perhaps has not been a professional athlete. So it's really kind of shaped me. And I actually took a very long time off and then started competing again during COVID, like right after COVID. And that's been amazing getting back in touch with my roots. I'm not pro anymore, but I do compete on the semi-pro circuit and have sponsors and stuff. So it's been really cool to get back to the sport, which has really kind of raised me in a sense.
That's amazing. When you were growing up, did you ever watch movies like Jerry Maguire? Was there ever a moment where you thought, I want to be a sports agent?
But I mean, it's actually a really interesting question that I get quite a bit. But when I was growing up, I wanted to be a pro snowboarder first and foremost. And then in my college years, I wanted to be the first female strength coach in the NFL. So that's what I studied. And I was going down that path. And I never really set out to say I was an agent, or so I thought. So fast forward, probably about 5 years ago, I was going through old newspaper articles and stuff from when I was in high school, and I came across an interview in our high school magazine that was interviewing me as an athlete, and it said, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And I literally said, "I want to be a sports agent like Jerry Maguire." But I don't remember saying that ever. And not until 5 years ago or so did I like discover that, and my jaw dropped. I was like, wait. What? Like, I actually said this and I said it in an interview, which made everything kind of just suddenly hit me like full circle. Like, wow, like this is amazing. I planted this seed way long time ago, totally forgot about it. But yet, the way my life has progressed and manifested everything, it kind of came full circle, which is really cool to come across that.
One of the first female strength and conditioning coaches in the NFL. That's a hell of a milestone. What was that like for you? And that must have served you pretty well in what you're doing and building connections and understanding the athletes, right?
Yeah, well, so that was my goal at the time. So I was a collegiate strength conditioning coach, but in college my goal was to be the first female strength conditioning coach in the NFL. So I worked at USC football under Coach Carroll, Pete Carroll, who is now the head coach of the Raiders. And that was such an incredible experience. Although it was very difficult, I'm not going to lie, that was my first year working on with basically professional athletes because at the time USC was the equivalent of a professional team because there were no professional teams, NFL teams in LA at that time. So that was my initiation year working in American football. And to be totally honest, it was not easy. They did not treat me very well. Probably the way that I was treated present day would not be okay. But I would not trade it for the world because it really kind of showed me, well, if you want to work in this business, this is the reality of working in the business. So I learned a lot of lessons and it definitely shaped me and molded me and got me prepared for the competitiveness and the toughness you need to have being a football in a still very male dominated industry. Even though there's a lot more women that work in the industry these days, it's still male dominated and you don't see it as much, but it's really still interesting being a female. So it prepared me and I learned so much that year and I wouldn't trade it for the world no matter how difficult it was for me.
Now it's BG Sports Enterprises Inc. How cool is it being the boss of such an amazing company and working with some of the best athletes in the world? Where do you see yourself going with it?
It's definitely a dream. I think often I really created my dream job. I took all the things I loved in life and I was able to create a space where I can work hand in hand with athletes and do not just one thing, but a variety of things. So it's amazing. It's a blessing. Every day I feel so grateful and blessed to be able to work with the athletes I get to work with. But at the same time, it's a ton of work. And you have to constantly provide value and service to your players and constantly be evolving and thinking of more ways to help them because it's a cutthroat competitive industry. So I try to think that, as blessed as I am to be working with my clients, that they're also blessed to be working with my team because we do everything with integrity and honesty and we work our butts off. So, it's a two-way street, but every day I'm so grateful. I live such a exciting and fun life, work my butt off, but you get the very high highs when you go through this industry. Future wise, we are doing a lot more stuff internationally. We're working more with professional teams in NFL and football. And so that's really exciting, being able to specialize in international branding. And then I also have a sports tech startup that I created to basically put myself out of business. However, simultaneously, it provides great value and features for everyone within the business of sports. And that's called Bpop. And it's still in beta, but it's my baby, and I've been working on it for 15 years. And so the future is hopefully, that will be able to grow into the platform that I know it can be. So lots of fun stuff happening.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of it. Tell us about it, Bpop. What is it? Where do you see it going?
It's an invite-only global sports opportunity platform. So basically, it connects talent to opportunities globally. It's a multi-sided matching platform. It enables athletes to look all over the world for opportunities in not just marketing, but in events, philanthropy, um, different types of PR opportunities. And it also empowers not just the athletes, but the agents, and it makes their life easier. And it simplifies the process of connecting talent to opportunities. For opportunities, it makes their life much simpler and much more efficient to where you can identify and contact the ideal talent within your budget, your target market, everything you're trying to accomplish. So it really just takes a lot of the inefficient processes within the business of sports and also within the ecosystem of social media influencer talent in general, and it just makes things much more efficient. So it's my first tech startup, and it's been quite the adventure. I actually had several different groups I'd partnered with in the beginning, and then they all just didn't really work out. So during COVID, I took coding lessons and built the beta version myself. So that was exciting and a whole different world learning different types of coding. I'm not a software developer. I used like a, very simple platform to build, but it was cool to dabble in that. However, I have a whole tech team now and it's totally fine. They can handle the next version of the platform. No problem. I don't want to do it.
Wow, ridiculously multi-talented. That's impressive. Yeah, you mentioned influencers. Like we're going through a really interesting time in sport. You work with a lot of UFC fighters. I mean, we've seen people like Nina Marie Danielle and like comedians like Theo Vaughn have a huge impact in bringing eyeballs to the sport. And then you've got guys like Speed. You saw the charity football game the other day. I think that was one of Adidas's most viral clips on TikTok. Like, and then influencer boxing. Where do you see the role of influencers and streamers in sport? They seem to be becoming more and more significant.
Yeah, it's been really interesting the past decade and just kind of the rise of the influencer and the role that they're now playing. And in all honesty, sometimes influencers are easier and cheaper to work with than your high level athletes. And that's understandably so because an influencer essentially they get all of their income from online. So it's a very interesting time and it actually took away a lot of opportunities from athletes because now brands are looking at the engagement. They can easily pick and choose who's going to target their markets and who is their target audience. And, that is maybe a better match than, say, an athlete. So it's put a lot of competition into the market in terms of digital opportunities for athletes. However, it also provides a lot of opportunity. So it kind of opens up doors of collaboration. And more you see athletes that are now kind of becoming influencers in their own right and also post-career being able to transition to create a brand while you're an NFL player and to be able to mold that to post-career to have a whole separate career or some of these athletes they have podcasts and then from there they're able to build and grow into the broadcasting space. So I think that it's an ever evolving industry and it's a happy kind of ecosystem with influencers and athletes. And I think that as long as people are continuing to take an open mind, that it's only going to grow and increase opportunities for everybody.
Well, I'm British. You mentioned working a lot with the UK and the NFL. How's that going? The love of NFL in the UK and making the NFL super global, do you think?
Well, I think the NFL is really kind of set out to tackle a mountain. And as you know as well as I do, football is, the most popular sport globally. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in general, each country has football. So I think trying to kind of go up against football, especially in the UK, is kind of a ridiculous goal. And I personally, I don't know how it would ever be able to compete on the same level. And plus, you talk about football, soccer in America, in the UK, and you have fans that have been fans for generations. So you can't really compete with that. So when you are trying to build the fan base in the UK throughout Europe, you have to create something that's organic and almost from scratch. So you can try to find similarities, but I think it's a matter of showing people what American football is about and having them experience it firsthand. And from there, creating different storylines and introducing them to the players and, creating that emotional connection because at the end of the day, a sports fan is a sports fan and it's about discovering a new sport. Now, not everyone has to discover American football. You already have like a really good audience in the UK. And you can really see that every year when all the NFL games are basically sold out. Now, it's interesting. I don't know if you've ever been to an NFL UK game in London, have you?
No, I haven't. Not yet.
Okay, well, they're always packed, but it's not necessarily fans of each team playing. It's more along the lines of fans of NFL in general. So you see people at a game that are wearing completely different jerseys than the teams playing. And only in the UK can you get away with that, or in Europe, because in America it would not work. But yeah, it's exciting. It's a really exciting time in NFL, and I think it's really cool that you have these NFL teams that now have the marketing rights internationally. But it is kind of like a new frontier for these teams because most of these teams have no idea how to build in Germany or build in Brazil. And so it's a very exciting time. And for us, it's exciting because that's kind of one of the areas in which we specialize. So it's been really fun being able to start working with NFL teams and helping and assisting them in that space for sure.
There are so many events on the calendar that must just be huge for you. You were at the Super Bowl, right? What was your big takeaways from the on the field, off the field? I feel like the Super Bowl just always sparks so many conversations, praise, criticism, like the whole nine yards.
Yeah, the Super Bowl is probably my favorite week of the year for business. It's insane, absolutely insane. For us, it's a whole week, and it takes me 3 months to prepare for Super Bowl, and it takes me about 2 weeks to recover from Super Bowl week. The game itself, I was super surprised. I did not think that the Eagles were going to pull that off. And it was crazy. I was like, for sure, the Chiefs, and then you also hear about, some people think it's rigged, and I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I could see why, and I'm like, oh, it's definitely rigged. But then you have games like that happen, and you're like, all right, maybe it's not rigged. So it was exciting, and I was happy with the outcome. We have players on both teams, so as long as our guys are happy, that's all that I care about. And then the whole week it was fabulous. New Orleans is an incredible Super Bowl city. Super Bowl's been in so many different places, and the city really helps to shape the entire experience. And New Orleans is a small city, which enabled you to be able to walk to a lot of events. And typically, when we do itineraries for our clients, the itinerary is about 20 to 30 pages long. And every day, sometimes the players have up to 12 events. And so, if you're in a big city that's spread out, you really have to pick and choose. You can only go to a couple, but in a smaller city like NOLA, it's phenomenal because not only can you walk, but you can jump on the bikes and you can really hit a bunch of events in one day. I think one of the days, the most that we went to was 7 or 8 events
Oh, wow.
throughout the day, which was insane.
Nice.
But it was a lot of fun. I love Super Bowl. It's the best.
Yeah, that's doing it properly. So, what lens do you look at sport now, having been a former athlete? It's interesting, I cover a lot of combat sports, and people look at fighting differently, whoever you speak to. For some people, it's prize fighting, it's who can make the most money with their fists. And for other people, it's martial arts, it's about respect and
Mhm.
glory. Sometimes it's about what happens on the field, but a lot of the times it's a lot to do with what happens off it. Can you talk? Can you draw eyeballs to what you're doing? So, what lens do you view sport in? Because you're trying to get the best deal for your clients, right? So it's a whole package, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it is completely a whole package, and depending on our client and how we're working with them. So, sometimes we work with guys, we're doing everything, and we're doing the PR, we're doing the marketing, the branding. If it's the PR and you're going into a fight, you're looking at it in terms of, okay, what storylines do we want to push out? Because ultimately, it's entertainment. And you're trying to get as many eyeballs on you as possible because that then enables better opportunity for everybody. And so a lot of that has to do with what is the current storyline going on between these two guys and what's the history. And each time it's going to be a different story. And so if that's part of it, then you're strategic about it sometimes, and other times things just happen and you roll with those punches. So, the lens that I take is I try to take a very broad, wide angle approach to everything because that enables you to kind of see all the different parts that have a play in the whole overall thing. You're talking digital, branding, PR. So there's so many different parts of it. So I think being able to take that, step back and look at the whole entire thing enables you to sometimes foresee or maybe come up with a better idea or more prepare your athlete. But it can be hard sometimes. And also when things happen that you don't expect, then you have to kind of like figure out, okay, we got to switch this up or we got to move or change. And so it's really exciting, but you definitely have to have all your ducks in a row and be efficient at what you're doing and make sure that you're communicating properly and able to be flexible as well. That's so important in life is when things don't go as planned, you have to come up with solutions and being able to not fall into the drama if something is like, oh gosh, this whole plan just fell through, but instead being like, okay, let's focus on the solution now, let's pivot. And that's a skill set that I think takes a long time to be able to develop. But being an athlete, that also I think makes it a lot easier to develop that skill.
You must see a lot of drama and you must have some crazy stories. I feel like if you were managing, the Rolling Stones or whoever, or Motley Crue, you would have seen TVs thrown out of windows. But managing UFC fighters where craziness goes hand in hand, highs, lows, friction. Yeah, what's that like to deal with and just stay level?
I think anytime you're working with high profile individuals, you're always going to have crazy drama stories, all types of stuff happening. The higher profile the athlete, the more insane it can be, and the more you have to kind of be very careful. And, when you're with your clients out in public, a lot of times I've actually been referred to as a pit bull from my clients in terms of when we're in public and being able to kind of, pay attention to your surroundings and see what's going on. And I think being from Colorado and I was raised very where family and your morals are everything, your character defines you. And I have such a strong roots in terms of how I was raised and the importance of family and integrity and honesty and morals. And that's in me and it's who I am. And I think that enables me to be able to be in these situations and always keep my head on level and try to not always get sucked into that drama, that dramatic energy. It's not easy to do, but I definitely know that my roots and the way that I was raised is a big part of that. And also, always trying to move from a place of integrity and be heart-centered so that no matter the situation or whatever thing is crazy that's going on, that you always kind of have your groundedness to you. So it enables you to think more clearly, I think, no matter how bizarre the situation.
Being a female boss in this industry, that is pretty cool, especially for young women looking up to you. How much do you value that, and how difficult is it to get to the top as a woman in this industry?
Well, I think that, to be totally honest, I don't think about that much, but then when I do, I think you know, it always makes me feel honored when anytime someone looks up to you. And it's not something that I set out to accomplish. It was just I set these ridiculous goals and I didn't stop until I accomplished them. But, it's always an honor to have people look up to you and be an inspiration for anybody. I think being able to inspire people is one of the greatest gifts that we can give one another. And, it's just something that I definitely don't take for granted, but it's also extremely difficult. And there's a lot of, just to be successful in this business is difficult. It doesn't matter what gender or race you are, just it's hard because it's such a competitive business. And what I don't think people understand is from the outside looking in, people think it's all glitz and glamour that you're hanging out with these A-list athletes and you're doing all this fun stuff. And yes, that is a part of it. But what they don't see is the amount of hours and the work that goes into this. I spend, as I said earlier, I spend 3 months preparing a Super Bowl itinerary that lasts a week. And the athletes don't see that. All they see is that 30-page itinerary that I email them on Monday before Super Bowl. And so I think, for anyone that wants to get into sports, I think it's really important to understand that it's a very difficult industry. Not everyone's a good person. A lot of people are driven by things that are not necessarily sustainable, or they see athletes as a way to make money off of them, or just, people with a little lack of character and morale. And there's a lot of people in this business, and there's a lot of people that will burn bridges to get to the top. And in my opinion, if you burn bridges, you might rise to the top quickly, but you're not going to stay there because the truth always comes out. And if you're over there just taking advantage of people and doing things not in a good way, eventually that'll catch up to you. So I think that it's really important if you want to be in this industry for a long time to do things the right way and take the high road no matter what happens, because ultimately that's building that strong foundation that will enable you to be in this business for many decades, which very few people can say that.
I think that was a very eloquent and nuanced way of saying something John Gooden, UFC commentator, said to me in a recent interview. The best advice he ever got was "Don't be a dick," which resonated with a lot of people, I think, and a lot of industries, right? Because it comes back to you, and if you are the opposite of that, I think that sets you and your
Yeah,
values pretty well.
1000%. You're right. I just said the same thing, just in a much nicer way.
It just came to me, but as you can imagine, I followed Olivier Giroud's career pretty closely. How exciting is it to have him over in LA and all these marquee strikers? You work with Christian Benteke, is that true as well?
Little bit, yeah. So we've worked with athletes in so many different ways. So some guys have been like full-time clients where we do everything for. Other guys are just like project clients where we bring them a deal or we book them interviews and stuff. So Benteke, I've worked with in PR, and then Olivier, we've done several different things with him in NFL UK and collaborations and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Like I remember I was in Milan a couple years ago, not too long ago, when he was still at AC Milan, and I was chatting with him about, okay, so what's your next move? Like, you want to come to the MLS? He's like, oh, I don't know. We'll figure it out. And then sure enough, a year later, he's at LAFC. So that was really cool. And I think it's a great fit for Ollie because he's that guy. You know what I mean? And so for him to go to some other club, it just wouldn't be a fit. Like the only way Olivier Giroud was going to come play in MLS was either to go to LA or Miami. And Miami's already has your superstars, so it's a perfect fit for him. And obviously, LA's an amazing city to live in. And so I know he's happy, his family is happy, his kids. So they're really enjoying LA. And it's fun to have him in LA too. It's great. I love seeing him in the black and gold. And LAFC is such a phenomenal organization and the fan base. You go to those matches, you feel like you're in Europe. It's insane. The first one I went to, I was like, is this for real? Like, I had no idea that the fan base was like so intense, such good energy. And I know that coming from such big clubs as he has, that helps him, I think, adjust and feel more at home, even though he's completely across the world.
Very handsome guy, very amazing highlight reel of goals as well in his career. So we've seen like billionaire athletes over the years, like Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, Conor McGregor, who I guess had the whole package in terms of talent and business nous as well. Is there anyone in terms of the modern athlete who you see going to that level?
I definitely think if we're talking about NFL, Odell Beckham. I mean, Odell is one of the most globally recognized NFL players of our time. Also, just a phenomenal human being in and out. So I think, he recently just launched his and Friends company, which is really exciting. So I think Odell, he's still in that transition period. He's not quite ready if to say he's retired. He's not quite retired, but he knows it's coming soon. So I think he's definitely one of those guys. And yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of them, but I have to sit and think. But Odell's definitely the first guy that comes to mind.
And what about your clients or people you work closely with? Is there anyone that you're super proud of in terms of having the whole package?
I would definitely say, I mean, I love every single one of my clients. They're all phenomenal human beings, and I feel so honored and blessed to work with them. More recently, I've been working with Marcus Harper II out of Oregon. So he was the first collegiate player that I've worked with that hired us, and it's been amazing. We've been working together now for a little over a year. And I will say, like, he impresses me day in and day out with his intelligence, his organization, the way his energy, and almost every interview that's ever interviewed him comes back and tells me, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing, da da da. So it's just really cool to see someone who's so young now about to enter into the NFL. He's in the draft. His pro day is actually on Tuesday. And just to, he's so far advanced beyond his years. And I've worked with so many athletes in my career, and he's just someone that stands out in so many ways. So I'm really proud of him and the growth that he's achieved in the past year. And I'm really excited to see where he's going to end up in the NFL and just to see him continue to grow and to develop into the player and the man that he is and the man that he's going to continue to become.
One to keep an eye on. Okay, it's been amazing to have you with us. So we'll let you go soon. I just wanted to wrap up with a little quick fire. So, in terms of business, who's the smartest businessman out of Floyd Mayweather, Tiger Woods, or LeBron James?
Whew, the smartest businessman. It's so hard because you asked me this question and I think character, right? And that's already going to X out someone. I would have to say King James. He's definitely like he's has so many different components to his brand, and he also is involved in philanthropy, and he opens up, I think, is it in Ohio? He opened up a school. Um, and just, the way that him and his son are on the same team, like there's just so many things about him in terms of business that are incredible, and just how he's built his entire empire, to me is probably my top of those three for sure.
Yeah, what an amazing storyline. Father and son on the same team. It's wild.
No, it's
Funny.
insane.
Who's the funniest athlete that you work with? Who makes
Oh,
you laugh?
God, that's so difficult. I definitely will say Steve Avila from the Rams is hilarious. I think like anytime you hang out with him, you're just going to be laughing the entire time. Another guy who's really funny is Roman Harper, who was my very first NFL client. And Roman is now doing a bunch of different stuff. He's been retired a few years, but Roman, and then oh my gosh, Jermon Bushrod, another one of my retired clients, where I just every time we're together, we just laugh. I just laugh thinking of him. Like they're just, yeah, amazing guys, hilarious, and I miss them all because I they're not here in Colorado with me. So yeah, I miss all those guys.
And what about in your circle? Who's motivated you or inspired you the most?
Motivated and inspired me the most. That's a really good question. I would say Adam Weitzman, who is somewhat of an influencer. Adam is just one of those people that, and I don't know if you know of his story, but if you don't, definitely look him up. He's got a pretty massive profile on Instagram. He's got like 20 million followers or something like that. But Adam's story is incredible and it's so inspiring. And he's just one of those people that has been through so much, and to see him rise from where he came from and to be such a humble human being is really inspiring. And he's one of those people that I could text him or call him, and he'll always be there. And I feel very blessed to know Adam. And I actually just commissioned, well, he didn't pay me for it. I draw sometimes, and I've literally commissioned maybe three pieces of art in my entire life where I created just unique pieces for them. And I literally today sent this one in the mail that took me several years to finish. And it's for Adam. And so I'm super excited, but also nervous at the same time, for him to get this piece of artwork. So we'll see. But yeah, that was fun to do.
Wow, I'd love to see it. You draw as well. Lots of talents, as I said. It's incredible. NBA, UFC, NFL, which has the best business strategy, do you think?
Ooh. NBA, UFC, NFL. Well, if we're talking global, UFC obviously has the largest global reach and they're all over the world. So that I can see. NBA, I think that their guaranteed contracts is phenomenal. I think they take great care of their players. NFL is getting better, but it's still a long way to go. And it still, I think, comes across a lot of athletes feel that it's just a business. Like there's not a lot of, it's like get the players in and out. And then when they're done, they're like, oh, good luck, have fun. So I'd say of those three, probably NBA. But I think that NFL is being really smart in terms of the international American football camps. They're now trying to get up in different countries. And I think that's going to really open up that sport quite a bit. But I also feel like the danger of the sport is a huge hurdle that is better now, but it's a very dangerous sport. And same with UFC. So NBA, again, in general, I think has, the business wise, I think it's probably my top of those three. But it's a very difficult question to really give you a straight answer because obviously each one has their own things
Yes,
that I think are great.
it's a very broad one, to be fair. The rise of influencer boxing is huge, from Tyson fighting Paul. We've got NFL players wanting to fight each other. Everyone seems to be making lots of money. What do you think would be the most interesting fight between two of your clients?
Oh my gosh. That's difficult. I don't know if I could even answer that. We could say Olivier Giroud against, oh my goodness. I have to think of someone like, gosh, I don't even know like the NFL player that I would put him up against, honestly, but it has to be someone obviously of similar size. So it's
Yeah,
going
he's
to
like
be like a
6'2",
safety.
right?
Yeah, he's pretty tall. So like a wide receiver or a safety or Gosh, I don't even know. I mean, I wouldn't say even one of my clients. Oh, you know what? I would say DK Metcalf. Although DK is a lot bigger than Olivier, but gosh, that would be an interesting fight. Or I'd like to see DK Metcalf against like Kamaru Usman. That would be a good matchup. Or Justin Gaethje, even though there's a lot shorter than DK. But yeah, that would DK's not a client, but I'm just thinking in general of like NFL players that, what would be the best matchup.
So what's your relationship with all the dominance guys these days? Are you still with dominance? Did you just work together? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, so Dominance was one of our clients where we provided PR for a lot of their fighters. And we're not doing the full PR anymore. But we're still obviously have great relationships with Ali. We have great relationships with all the athletes. So it's not as full time as it used to be. Now is more like when we get opportunities or different interviews and things like that. So it's not as intense, which is totally fine. But yeah, we did all of Dominance's PR for several years. So that was a lot of work. But it was really cool to be able to work in the UFC space and get to know kind of how the business worked. And we worked with a lot of really, really cool guys. So that was a great experience for sure.
Well, we acknowledge you're one of the busiest women in sport, so it's very gracious of you to give us your time. It's a full-on podcast. Brittany, I really appreciate it. Could talk to you all day. Good luck with everything. Have an amazing year and hopefully catch you in the future.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me and for always supporting our clients. We really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.